Testing, testing, final testing. Welcome, and thank you for joining us this morning or this evening, depending on where you are in the world. It's a very special broadcast today. We're sitting live with Dr. Demartini, and we've actually interrupted one of his sessions. He's about to present a master planning session. So we actually have a live audience with us on this webinar. So that should bring some extra energy into the room. Hi, John, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Fantastic. This is the first time for me as well, having an invisible audience, live invisible audience in front of me. So let's see how we go. I'm sure they'll help us along. For this webinar, well, my name is Brandon Tankard. Let's start there. And I've been a student of John's for many, many years, and have followed through and done a lot of programs and courses that he's about to speak to you about. And personally, I've found that this process of empowerment has really transformed every aspect of my life, from my health to thinking to business to personal relationships. Not that I've got it all figured out, but I find having a mentor like Dr. Demartini and something that you can reference really valuable in my life. So John, I just want to personally thank you as part of my introduction for that opportunity. And
thank you.
Great. So what we're going to do in this webinar, before I introduce the topic, the Demartini Institute has been kind enough to put together a series of questions that lead us through the topic, just so we stay concise and to the point. And I know you've got a wealth of information to give to everybody. So I'm going to jump straight into that after giving you an introduction. So for those of you who don't know, Dr. Demartini is a leading human behavioral specialist, and he's been in the industry for 44 years of cross-disciplinary research and study that's been put into his teaching. He travels 360 days a year, doing thousands and thousands of in 29 different languages. His books have been published in 60 CDs, DVDs, and countless other accolades, and coaching some of the best and brightest in the world. So for those of you that need to go and see Dr. Demartini's work, you can go and take a look at demartini.com. You go and take a look at all the work there, and particularly there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be referencing in this webinar that you'll need to go and take a look at. Great. So to run through into the questions, John, I'm just going to jump right in. You referred to William James as the father of modern psychology, saying that the greatest discovery of any generation is that a human being can alter their life by altering the questions and the quality of questions that they ask themselves. Could you elaborate a little bit further on what you mean by that?
Well, William James, when I was in my early 20s, I had the opportunity to read. And that one statement had a major impact on my life, because many people all around us like to run their story and be victims of their history instead of being masters of their destiny. And I was very fascinated by what is it that he meant by changing their perceptions and attitudes. And I realized that if you perceive things on the way and not in the way, you go farther in life. Because anybody can sit there and accumulate things and reasons why they can't do something. But if they start to accumulate reasons why they can, they do. And so I learned a new set of questions. I learned from Albert Einstein that holy curiosity was the key to great achievement. And living with curiosity starts with questions. And questions make you aware of things that your unconscious mind has that you're not conscious of. Makes you see things you don't normally see. So the quality of your life is based on the quality of the questions you ask. And if you change your questions that you ask yourself, for instance, why did this darn thing happen to me, is one question. That leads to one result. But what if you ask, how is whatever's happening to me helping me fulfill my mission in life? What is really inspiring to me? What's really valuable to me? That's a different question. And that question can change you being a victim or a master. So when I did that, I started compiling questions. In fact, the class that I'm actually doing right now here in Johannesburg is about 2,000 questions to ask yourself, to awaken yourself to the power you have within that you may be denying because you didn't ask the questions. So learning how to ask questions can change your perceptions, can change the decisions you make, and change the actions you take, particularly changing perceptions. So when he said that you can alter your life by changing the perceptions and attitudes of mind, that really starts from changing the questions you're asking yourself, which makes you see the world, the same situation, from a different light, and then liberates you from the emotional baggage you may be accumulating over running the story about how you once perceived it. I do a program called the Breakthrough Experience where I literally have people come in with stories, and I ask them at the end of the program, is that story still alive? And they go, no. That story has been revamped, rechanged, because we asked a series of questions. In a method I developed called the Demartini method, there's 14 questions, really 48 questions, but there's 14 that I do in the Breakthrough Experience that when they're done, they don't see the story the same way. Whatever happened to them is now seen as fuel, not as friction. So you can change your life. I'm absolutely certain you can change your life. I see it every weekend in the program. You can change your life by changing the quality of the questions you ask and changing your perceptions. So thank you, William James, because he was the father of modern psychology, because he was not running stories like other previous teachers had done and using the external world as the determining factor. We sometimes think that the world on the outside dictates, and there's still psychologists that believe it's all about your environment only. But that's not the truth. That's one factor, but how you perceive that environment, what you decide to do with it, and how you act on it can change your life. Because I've seen people with unbelievable histories and amazing stories that they want to run, and they turn it into a great opportunity by changing the perceptions, attitudes, and questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, John. And in your work, you speak a lot or reference the amygdala as the animal brain or the executive sector being responsible for human emotions and our basic operations. Could you explain a little bit to us how that relates to, in particular, to achievement?
Well, I started studying the brain. I started familiarizing myself with the brain when I was about 18 years old. By the time I was in my early 20s, I was devouring books on the brain. By the time I was 23 to about 27 or 8, I was reading hundreds of books on the brain. And one thing that I did, I started mapping out. I went through this, people thought I was kind of neurotic at the time, but I went and I took every brain anatomy location in the brain, and I made a chart, a vertical chart with every known area of the brain. So an anatomical location in the brain, I charted it. I made it down the list. And then I went across with the same anatomical list. So I had like a spreadsheet before they had Excel. And I started, and every time I found a book on neurology that showed a relationship between one part of the brain and another, I would put a little box. If you can imagine a spreadsheet with all the names of the loci of the brain, and then all of them going across. And anytime I found in a book a reference that this was connected to this, I would then put a little coloring in that area to show that these are connected. Well, after a while, I saw patterns of connections in the brain, and I found layers of the brain. And then I came across a guy named McLean's work, and he basically said that there was a kind of a layers of the brain that was dealing with the levels of evolution. And that was an evolutionary model that showed that we had a forebrain, that was the most advanced part, the neocortex, and we had a kind of an inner core of that, the limbic brain, and then we had a basal ganglia, and then we had the brain stem, and then we had the spinal cord, and then we had the nerves. And so I started to create a kind of a hierarchical structure of the brain and looked at the functions of those parts of the brain. And I found these correlations, and there were layers that were showing up in all the anatomy text. And then I started looking at it, and there was an evolution to the brain. And even though different mammals and different vertebrates had all the layers of the brain, certain ones were developed more effectively than others along the phylogenetic pathway, the pathway from different species. And I started studying this, and I found in the forebrain, we have the most advanced capacities. The hindbrain, the most primitive, you might say. So we have reflexes down in the primitive part of the brain, and we have reflective awareness in the more advanced part of the brain. And now with all the studies, the functional MRIs and the PET scans and all these technologies we have, we've learned a lot about the brain. And we know that it is hierarchical. And we know that when we live, this is where values come in, when we live congruently and in alignment with our highest values, the blood and glucose and oxygen levels go up in the more forebrain of the brain. So what we do is we literally have foresight. We have strategic planning. We have inspired vision. We have the ability to execute plans. We have self-governance. We have self-mastery. We have the masterful brain, the one that allows us to master our life in the forebrain. And down in the more layers, the lower layers of the brain, we get more and more and more primitive behavior. In the lower brain, in the amygdala area of the brain, we have the avoid pain, seek pleasure. Avoid predator, seek prey. So when we're under extreme stress, that part of the brain comes alive, and it gets glucose and oxygen, and it's there for fight or flight, and it's there for seeking prey and food, rest and digest, and fight and flight. But the more advanced part of the brain is for reason, intuition, creative thinking, inspiration, love, wisdom. And so people deep inside want to go and do something extraordinary with their life. They want to live an empowered life. And so by living according to highest values, highest priorities, things that are really most important, we wake up the advanced part of the brain. And by doing lower priority things and letting the world on the outside dictate our world and destiny and be victims of our history, we live in the more primitive part of the brain. So there is a hierarchy to the brain. It does correlate with the hierarchy of conscious awareness. It does correlate with our value systems. It's really quite amazing the way it's structured. I imagine the intelligence that went into this brain. It's humbling. Now, some people have different beliefs about whether there's a creative intelligence in the universe that's actually creating and evolving things, or whether it's just random thermodynamics and physics that are, there's meaningless and purposeless. There's two different camps on that. The more you probe into the mysteries of the brain, the more you probe into the mysteries of an individual cell in the brain, the more humbled you are by the most ingenious structures doing their jobs unbelievably to try to help us. I really believe that our brain is trying to help us live a fulfilling life, an inspired life. And so the study of the brain is very inspiring. It's one of the most amazing studies that we could ever do in our life. It's the most advanced structure known in the universe. And being part of that and studying that over these years has been very humbling and very rewarding. And so I'm very fascinated because I'm interested in knowing how to maximize human awareness potential. Studying the brain has been one of the keys in that endeavor. And when William James talks about changing your life, it's about the way you function inside the levels of the brain.
It's amazing. And I mean, just yesterday I was reading an article that they found a new neuro pathway connecting the hemispheres of the brain called the crown of thorns. And I thought to myself, wow, we're so advanced with neuroscience, and these record-breaking breakthroughs are coming through still to this day. So, I mean, that leads us a lot of our clients, or your clients, Dr. Demartini, have had their lives completely transformed after some of these programs. So if you could expand on some of the reasons why these lives expand, or if you could give into a little bit more detail or what we perceive, what we decide to do with, and how we act, how that goes into changing our lives.
Well, yeah, I would love to. You mentioned the crown of thorns. This new discovery that they made is called the colostrum. Now, the colostrum has been known about for many, many decades, but it's a radiation of nerves coming between the thalamus and the internal capsule and external capsule in the insular region of the brain. And this thing radiates out. And they now believe it has a lot to do with consciousness. And they found for the first time in some of the mammals, they believe it's in every mammal, that it's the first time they found nerves literally going around the entire brain. They didn't know this. This is a new anatomy that they've discovered. So this is pretty inspiring. And they believe it has something to do with tying together consciousness when we're integrated. So when we're living really inspired lives, the higher brain systems literally integrate the lower brain systems, and we work as a unit. There's like a symphony instead of a cacophony. An orchestra is functioning. So the crown of thorns is just a term because they found this nerve going all the way around. But that is an amazing discovery. I was very inspired when I saw this piece. It's now just coming into the general market, but it's been a discovery for a bit. Now about actions, throughout all these years that I've been studying human behavior, I noticed in myself and in others that I would often have a goal to do something, an intention to do something, and I would then discover sometimes I didn't do it, and sometimes I did. And I was wanting to increase the percentages of the things I said I was going to do. I wanted to walk my talk instead of limp my life. I didn't like hypocrisy in my own self. And so I was frustrated by that. And I went through stages in my life going, how do I maximize what I say becoming what I do? And I discovered human values and how important human values are, because each individual does live with a set of priorities, a set of values. And many people don't know what they value. They live in kind of a delusion and a fantasy about what is really important to them. In other words, if I asked a group of people, how many of you want to be financially independent? Every hand would go up. And then I ask, how many of you are financially independent or on your way to financial independence? And most of the hands go down. Maybe 1% will keep their hands up. So they all believe they want that. But in actuality, their life doesn't demonstrate the actions to create that. And what they really want is the lifestyles of the rich and famous. They want the lifestyles of the wealth, but they don't actually want to do the things that actually build wealth. So they don't really know what's important to them. They think they want to be wealthy, but what they really want to do is spend money on consumables. So many people don't know what they really want Deep inside they do, but the outside of them, the facade that they live, is clouded. And so I found this, and I found this in myself. I found that I say I want to do something, then I wouldn't do it. And I was interested, how do I solve that conundrum there? And I found it that even though I had studied values, I didn't really see how they were applied until really about late 20s. I started to comprehend it more. And I started realizing that each person lives by a set of priorities, a set of values, things that are most important to least important in their life. And their life demonstrates what they really value. And what they say and what they do are not always the same. And that discrepancy has a lot to do with our self-depreciation, because if we say we're going to do something and then we don't do it, we beat ourselves up. And so getting that congruent was very crucial to mastering life. So I basically said, I wanted to know, how do I determine a person's values? That was a very important action on the 6 action steps to change your life forever. One of the most important ones, the first one, is finding out what you really, truly value. What does your life really demonstrate? I ask people in my breakthrough experience programs almost every week, when they say, well, I don't know what my purpose is or what's really important to me. I go, what does your life demonstrate? If you look at your life and videotape it, you'll see what you do every day. That's what's important, is finding out what's really, really your life demonstrates. So if I look at my life, I obviously have a value on teaching. I travel and teach every day. And so if I can make up stuff, I could say it's everything else. But the reality is my life demonstrates that I love teaching and I love researching and learning. So I have to be truthful to myself. As the old Delphic Oracle says, know thyself and be thyself if you want to love yourself. So I first went in there and realized that I better find out what you really value, because every decision you make is based on what you believe will give you the greatest advantage over disadvantage to that highest value. And your highest value is determining how you perceive the world, making decisions, worlds, and acting. And that's the only 3 things you have that you have control over in life: your perceptions, decisions, and actions. So knowing what your values are is crucial. So when I'd ask people what they value, I found discrepancies. I found social idealisms and platitudes and all kinds of things that people would tell me, but I wasn't seeing that that's what their life was demonstrating. So I wanted to know how to determine your values and find out what really you valued by looking carefully at the different criteria, the determinants of your life. And I came up with 13 of them. And they are basically this. And I'd like to take a moment to go through them. Even though some of you may have heard these, I want to go through them again, because even if you've heard them, you may not have really applied them. So I'd look at how you really fill your space, because many people don't realize that if there's something really, really valuable to you, you keep it around you. And if it's not valuable to you, it toss. You get rid of it. It goes to the trash, the garage, the attic, or something. If you think you might someday get to it, you might store it. But if not, it tosses. So look at how you fill your space. Look at your personal or professional space. What do you really fill it with? What does it really fill with? In my case, thousands of books. Thousands of books. That tells you I want to learn, obviously. And if I look at what the content of the books are, it tells you the topic I really want to learn. And then if you look around, you may find that you have children around you, because you have kids. I had a friend the other day that said, my highest value is obviously children. I have my kids there and all their friends there, and they're always at the house, and they live at the house, and they sleep over and everything else. Kids are valuable. It's obvious. Some people have technology. You look around their place, and it's just technology. It's nothing but gadgetry and IT and technology. They're IT lovers. Other people, they have beautiful paintings, and other people have beautiful pictures of their travels. Other people have trophies of their accomplishments. There's different things, but look at what you fill your space with, and it tells you a lot about what you value. And so if you were to follow me around the world and looked at the hotels I'm in, you would see my computer is the #1 thing that goes with me. And if I look at what its dominant use is, it's for researching and teaching. So, if whatever you carry around, its purpose that you keep it there is because it's trying to help you fulfill what you value most. So the first value determinant is what you fill your space with. The second one is, how do you spend your time? You find time, make time for things that are really valuable to you, and you run out of time for things that aren't. And so if you look at how you spend your time, you may be sleeping 6 hours. If you slept 20 hours, then obviously sleeping is important to you. But if you sleep 6 hours, then look at what do you do during the day? If you're spending 10 hours at work, obviously there's something in that work that's valuable to you. Maybe for financial independence or financial security. It may be the social interaction. It may be that you love the actual work you're doing. But if you're doing it, you wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't giving a value. And so you look at how you spend your time. And most of my time is teaching, so it's pretty straightforward. but some people it's a little bit not easy to see. They have to go in and really look carefully at what they spend their time in, video their life, and look carefully, because you make time for things that are valuable to you. So if you look at how you fill your space and you look at how you spend your time, you already get a glimpse of what you value. The third value determinant is energy. What energizes you? When you're doing something that's high in your value, your energy goes up. And when you're doing something low in your value, your energy drops down. When I'm teaching, I can go all day on it. When I'm sitting and maybe waiting for a train or whatever, I might, waiting for a flight, I might fall asleep. So if I'm doing something that's high in my values, the energy surges. Anytime you're up in the areas of the brain that's high, your energy levels go up. Anytime you're doing low, energies go down. You're designed that way. So if I look at what my energy is always up on, I always have the energy for it, and I'm energized, and I have more energy when I'm finished doing it than when I started, you know that that's what's valuable to you. And the next one is how you spend your money. You find money and spend money on things that are valuable to you. You run out of money and don't have money for things that aren't. And so you look at how you spend your money. And in my case, years ago in my 20s, every dollar I had, it went to books. And now it goes to travel around the world teaching. But if you look carefully, or investments, but your values are demonstrated by how you spend your money. And the fifth determinant is basically, where are you most organized? You bring order and organization to things that are valuable to you, and you have chaos and disorder around things that are lower. I was sitting on a plane flying to Australia, and I got up to stop in the restroom, and I was standing there because somebody was in there. I was just standing there, and I saw a gentleman there with his daughter in the front row, in the front of the plane. And this daughter had 15 little horses, all different sizes, on the little tray that they eat on. And I walked by and I was watching this girl, and she had them extremely well organized, and she had them all structured, and they were literally by size, and they were beautifully laid out. And I said to the father, I said, she loves horses, huh? And she goes, oh God, does she love horses? I said, just out of curiosity, if you went into her bedroom, would you see pictures of horses and horse models and horse everything? He says, there's nothing but horses in that place. Does she spend her time just dwelling on horses? Yes. And is that what energizes her? Absolutely. And if she ever gets any money to buy something, it's always about horses. And can I see it's all organized? Yeah. And so it was very obvious the horses were her dominant focus at that stage of her life. And your values can change in different phases, but that was most important. And then the next value determinant was exactly what you're most disciplined and reliable on. See, nobody has to remind me or motivate me to get up in my teachings. I love doing that. And you have something in your life that nobody has to remind you to do. When I ask people in the breakthrough experience to help them clarify their purpose in life, I ask, what is it you do every single day or nearly every day that you love doing, that you never have to be reminded to do, you spontaneously do, that you just do, and you enjoy doing it, and you're inspired by it? And they go, well, this. I go, but my purpose should be this. And they're injecting values of other people, and they're afraid to admit what's really important to them. But look at where you're disciplined, because that's what's valuable to you. You don't have to be reminded. You're intrinsically and spontaneously inspired from within to do the highest value. This is the way you have a change of life forever. Get clear about that. That's key. The next one is, what do you think about how you would love your life to be? This shows evidence of coming true. And the next one is, what are you visualizing about how you would love your life to be? This shows evidence of coming true. And the next one is, what do you talk to yourself internally as your internal dialogue about how you want your life to be? That shows evidence of coming true. Not your negative self-talk, but the talk that's affirmed in your mind about how you would love your life to be. And that's showing evidence. If it's not showing evidence, that's not really valuable. Because what's really valuable, you show evidence of coming true. And the next one is, what do you keep wanting to converse and talk to other people about most? If you look carefully in your life, you walk up to people, they come up to you and said, how's your investments? How's your business? How's your children? How's your workout? How's your social cause? Whatever's valuable to them, how's your traveling coming? They want to talk about it, and you'll do the same. So look at what you spontaneously love talking about. If you talk about it, you'll go all night. I've seen people at 11 o'clock at night at a function, social function, and they're starting to fade. And all of a sudden, the conversation changes to something that's valuable to them, and at 12:30, they're still cranking. They're wide awake, and they're just buzzing on the way home because they're getting to talk about what's important to them. And when people do, they liven up. Because anytime you're doing something that's high on your values, your energy levels goes up. And the next one is, what inspires you? And what's common to the people that inspire you? If you look very carefully, the people that have inspired me in my life are all the Nobel Prize winners, all the great philosophers, all the great thought leaders, all the great inspired leaders, all the great business leaders, people that did extraordinary things and overcome amazing challenges. That inspires me. I can read about them. I can study about them. I can watch videos on them. What are you inspired by? And then the next one is actually, what are the 3 most consistent and persistent goals that you have that you're showing evidence of coming true? If there's no evidence of coming true and you have a kind of a fantasy and there's no evidence, that's not what you write. But the ones that you're coming true. And the last value determinant is, what do you love studying about, reading about, learning about, and listening to about? When you go to a bookstore, what area do you beehive to? When you go online, what do you study? When you go to the newspaper, what section do you read? Look at what you can't wait to get up and learn about, because you love learning spontaneously what you value. Now, if you go through these 13 value determinants and answer the top 3 answers for each one of them, you'll have 39 answers. Those 39 answers will have repetition. You'll see the same answers surfacing in some same form or similar form or some synonym. If you look at which one shows up most frequent, second most frequent, third most frequent, etc., it will tell you the hierarchy of your values, the priorities that you're living your life by. And you'll smack you and you'll see, my God, that's what my life is. And the highest value, you'll see your identity and your life revolving around. And if you take that highest value and you structure your life and orchestrate your life around that, you're going to excel. You're going to end up having momentum building. Your energies are going to go up. Your health is going to go up. Your creativity is going to go up. Almost everything that you probably want in your life is going to be enhanced by living in alignment and congruent with that, and giving yourself permission to be that, and not infiltrating your life with everybody's expectation around you of what you think you should be and what you're supposed to be. Liberate you with a tremendous amount of energy and mastery. And you end up automatically emerging as a leader, because everybody wants to live that way. And when they see somebody doing that, they're drawn and magnetized to that person who's willing to be that way. So that's the first action step if you want to make a difference for the rest of your life, is accessing and determining your values and getting clear about what's really, really important to you. That's number 1 action.
Thank you very much, Demartini. And that's right. So the 6 actions to take and choose your life. The first one is to determine your values. So for the audience live in front of Dr. Demartini, if you haven't done it already, please go to drdemartini.com/values. And for the audience joining us by webinar, go through that process. It's very straightforward. The Demartini Institute have put a fabulous product together there where you can actually track and go back and reference your values at a later stage. I'd really advise that. And that leads us to our second action, Dr. Demartini, which is determining the why or the purpose. Could you unpack for us, please, the most important action to take to change one's life in determining the why or the purpose?
Well, this is a natural emerging response to determining your values, because whatever your highest value is, the highest value, the one that shows up most frequent, the one that your identity revolves around, that's the purpose. If you look carefully and find people that are on a purpose, that feel really inspired by some mission in their life, it's because that's the highest value. The ancient Greeks knew this. This is nothing new. They knew and they called this highest value the telos, the end in mind. All other values are extrinsic and are basically means to that end. And your brain, magnificent brain, is doing everything it can to try to help you live there. It's literally neuroplastic, remodeling the brain to maximize the expression of that telos. The brain is a telos-seeking and fulfilling organ. And giving yourself permission to do that and get clear on that highest value is the area where you're going to maximize all potential, all awareness. In fact, your highest value is determining. You have what is called a selective biased attention with your awareness on anything that's high in your value. You will spot in your environment anything that will help you do it. Women that have a high value on their children can literally sleep through a freight train and wake up at the whimpering of a child on a monitor, because they have a selective biased attention. The pulvinar region in the thalamus and the colostrum all work together to filter their reality according to what they value to maximize their potential. So that highest value is the purpose. And when somebody says, well, I don't know what my purpose is, it's because they are selecting to ingest or inject and literally all the injunctions of other people's values in their life. And as long as you live trying to please everybody else on the outside and not find out what it is on the inside that you're inspired to do, you're going to drain your energy, you're going to scatter yourself, you're going to try to multitask, trying to please so many people. Chronic fatigue syndrome is a classical example, not only physiologically and psychologically, but even literally microbiologically in your body. You literally change the microbiome and viral biome the second you actually are living by lower values. This has been demonstrated. That's why changing microbiomes change chemistries in the brain, and changing the brain function by living by highest priorities, change your micro and viral. And in the process of that, we literally can change our potential and our energy by doing that. So living by highest priorities and the highest value is one of the most key things. That is our purpose. That's when we have the most purpose, the most meaning, the most power, the most presence, the most certainty, the most objectivity, the most reason, the most powerful intuition. Our sixth sense is awakened. Our purpose is an expression of what we value most. And if we look carefully, our values are being derived from voids, and voids are derived from all of our judgments that we've never loved. And so what we do is, our purpose is the most efficient, effective pathway to fulfill all the voids in our life to give us the most fulfillment. Fulfillment means filling full the mind. And when we're really masterful, we feel fulfilled and we feel grateful. And when we're not, we go into a primitive part of the brain and we want to consume to feel better and to feel full. And consumerism and addictive eating, addictive behaviors are a byproduct of unfulfilled highest value, to telos, the purpose. So if you want to feel teleologically purposeful in life, it's determining the highest value from the value determination process and then structuring your life to live by that. And that's a mastery. That's the skill. That's when almost every program I'm involved in teaching, I revolve around that. Because if you do that, you don't need motivation. See, I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not interested in using persuasion and rhetoric to get you to do something that's not meaningful to you. I'm interested in helping you find out what's really inspiring from within so you don't require motivation. I don't need to require motivation for me to do what I love. You don't need it either. Finding out what that highest value is, that purpose in life, is the difference. When you see people that are purposeful, they use and accomplish things and they become leaders. And the people that are just walking around wandering don't. I used to use the analogy in 1982. I used an analogy for me when I was younger. I saw ant beds out in the fields. And you've probably seen maybe these big mounded ant beds out there with these large ants running around. If you walk around the ant bed, you'll see that there's ant paths going to the center of the ant hole and down to the queen. And so what happens is you look out there, you'll see that there's ants that are wandering around, just meandering around, lost, and they're not picking up anything. And then all of a sudden, they're wanderers, and then they find something, and it gives them a purpose, something productive. And then they walk on the path. They find the path back and come back to get the reward by the head of the ant colony. And you find out that when they are really purposeful, they're carrying a load and they're tackling challenges and they're going and doing something productive. If not, they're wandering around. And that's what most people do. They're wandering around. They don't know where they are, and they're always followers instead of leaders. Not because they have to be, but because they haven't found that highest value. They haven't given themselves permission to live it, and they haven't structured their life around it. So the first thing and the first action step, if you want to change your life, is get really clear on your values. The second one is tackle that first one and start structuring your life around that. That's your purpose. Your purpose is an expression of your highest value.
Thank you, Demartini. So just to refresh, the first action is to make sure you determine your values. Your second action is to determine the why and the purpose. And our third action in the series of the 6 actions you can take to change your life is prioritizing those actions to be more productive. Now, I know this is one that I struggle with sometimes, and I think it's mainly because of the age we live in. There's technology, there's emails, there's mobile, there's everything, and everything needs to be urgent all at once. How does someone prioritize these actions to be more productive?
Well, I've said, I learned from somebody, I think I was in my 20s, I think it was somebody who was in Amway, actually. They said, when the why is big enough, the house take care of themselves. When you got a big enough reason, a big enough why, a big enough purpose for doing something, you will find a way of getting it done. So that's why identifying your values and identifying your purpose is crucial. Then second, if you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, it is designed to fill up with low priority distractions that don't. I put on a program which I'm in the middle of right now, called Master Planning for Life. And the reason I put that together is for myself initially, and then people kept seeing that I was making progress and building momentum in my life, and they wanted to know what I was doing. And then I realized that would be helpful to pass that on to other people. And it was based on questions to make you aware of what really you want in life. And asking you, you don't always ask yourself. You do more planning for a vacation, you do your life. And your life is more important than even a friggin' vacation. Your life designed to be the vacation, actually. And so what happens is you have to stop and ask, what is really priority in your life? Now, 30 years ago, I had the opportunity to speak in Dallas at the Anatole, which is a big convention complex and hotel complex, for Mary Kay Cosmetics. And I spoke to 4,500 women. And at the end of it, I had the opportunity to meet Mary Kay herself, Mary Kay Ash. Lovely, elegant lady with her hair all up and sprayed and stuff, and just very elegant, looked like a queen. And I walked up to her and I said, Mrs. Ash, what advice could you give a young man who wants to travel the world and be an inspiring speaker around the world? And she said, young man, every single day, write down the 6 or 7 highest priority action steps you can do that day that can help you move one step closer to your dream. And make sure it's the highest priority things you can imagine. And if you do that every single day and not write big goals, but just daily actions that you get done that day. Because sometimes we'll set up a goal and it takes longer, and we accumulate these goals and we have what is called goal overrun. We just accumulate, and we feel like we never get them done and we feel overwhelmed and we beat ourselves up. She wanted me to write down incremental baby steps to make big dreams. You know, I always say piggy banks become biggie banks. Baby steps make big dreams. And building momentum by doing ever greater steps is the key to incrementally building great lives. So she was the one that taught me to set the highest priority actions each day. So in those days, I used to carry index cards with me. So anytime I got notes from listening to a teacher or a presentation or reading a book or a magazine or listening to conversation, anytime I got a great idea, I put it on index cards. I documented the topic of what that card was, and I sorted it at night. And that way I was building an inventory of organized power. And in the process of doing that, I wrote down that each day. I got up in the morning on the index cards and I wrote down what are the 7 highest priority action steps I can do for that day. And I wrote them down. And then I kept the card in a box. And the next day I did it. And I acted on them. And if I got them done early in the day, I'd add one more. And if I got that done, I'd add one more. But I didn't pile 20 of them on there and then beat myself up at the end of the day because I didn't get them all done. Because that was self-defeating. And I kept, and after a period of months, pardon me, I think that my microphone is a little bit flipping in and out, so I'm not sure what's going on here. Hopefully you can hear me.
Perfect.
But anyway, I kept them in a box, and every single night I'd put them there. And then about 2 years into the project, I took the box and I went through them and I pulled out the first one. I wrote down everything I wrote down, and I tossed the card. I pulled out the second one. I wrote down everything I wrote down, and anything that was duplicate, I just put line, 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 line. I took the third card. I kept tossing them and taking them, and I wanted to know what was the priorities of the priorities. What were the highest priority actions that I could do on a daily basis from all those times I wrote my priorities? I want to know the priorities of the priorities. The 20% that gives you 80% results, and the 20% of that gives you 80% results, and the 20% of that gives you 80%, the Pareto principle. And I literally charted out all those cards. And then I looked at them, and they were line, 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 slash, 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 line, line, and some of them, there was only a few times. The ones that were way off the chart, the ones that were the most showing up frequently, they were the highest priorities of the highest priorities. So I looked at that, and I narrowed it down, and I found 4 that were the highest of the priorities for me. And that was research, write, travel, teach. And so when I did that, I said, all right, these are the highest priorities most consistently, day after day. If I do those things, I'm going to get my mission, my highest value, my purpose done, which is to teach. So then I had set out on a goal to do the next action step, which we're going to do. So I had to first prioritize it. Because if you don't fill your day with ordering priority, it fills up with disorder and chaos. And so I had to learn to do that. And then the next step, after finding those priorities, which is the most powerful step of all, I'd like to do, if you don't mind, it's the 4th step. And the 4th step is then learning how to delegate them, all the lower priority things. And I didn't really learn that really thoroughly. I just started to learn that at age 28. So 28, 29, 30, I was just starting to develop that skill. By the time I was in my 30s, it was really getting powerful. And by the time I was in my 40s, for sure, I had that mastered. But in the 30s, I had to figure out how to surround myself with people that could do the things that needed to be done, but wasn't me to do it. So I had to go in there and find out, I had to prioritize what I did. I looked at a list of everything I did in a day. I wrote down what does it produce per hour, what meaning it had, how much would it cost to delegate it, how much time was spent. And I had to sit down and sift through it and to find out what were the highest priorities, again, and to delegate the ones underneath research, write, travel, and teaching. So in the process of doing that, I found it, and then the way you master your life is first you delegate the lowest priority, then you delegate the next priority, and then you delegate the next priority, and you keep doing your working way up until you're eventually delegating even the highest priority, and you're duplicating yourself. That's probably the biggest challenge that people face, is duplicating themselves. But that is literally working your way up and delegating from lower to higher priorities. So I started out delegating lower priorities, And I got another layer and another layer and another layer. And I surrounded myself with people. And sometimes I have to go through 2 or 3 people in hiring before I got the person I could release it to. But I had to learn how to hire, and I had to learn how to and make sure that their values were going to be fulfilled by doing the things that I wanted. So they were engaged and inspired to do the things. So I didn't have to micromanage them and distract myself. So it's a slow process for me to learn how to do that. But it's the only way to free yourself up from doing lower priority things that devalue you. Because anytime you're doing lower priority actions, you devalue, and anytime you do the highest priority actions, you inspire and empower you and raise your self-worth. So I slowly but surely, over the few years, freed myself up of those things. And eventually delegated everything but research, write, travel, teach. And jokingly, I had a funny thing happen in my life. A number of years back, I had 2 people working in my office. And you'll probably laugh at this. But there were 2 people working in my office. And I had just come in from Australia speaking. And I got in early the morning. And my staff were coming in around 8 o'clock. But I got in there around 7:30. But I forgot to unlatch the door. And so when I came in, the door was still locked. So I was in the back quietly, just sitting there typing. And nobody even knew I was there. So they came in and I could hear them talking. And they knew I was coming in that day, but they didn't know I was already there. So I heard the 2 people conversing because they were a husband and wife team and they were working. And the guy said to his wife, he said, well, he's coming in today. We better get ready. It's about to get to be a whirlwind. He comes in, we can get ready for delegations. I know he's going to have delegations ready for us. We do almost everything but wipe his butt. And he was joking, but it was true. I delegated everything and downloaded on these guys. So anyway, he didn't know that I was hitting the back. And so I got a delegation sheet and I wrote in there and I got some toilet paper and a paper clip and I put it on there. I said, I'm delegating that. And I dropped it off at his desk and delegating 11 o'clock, wipe my butt. And of course he laughed at that. But it was true. I was delegating almost everything, not that, but almost everything to liberate myself, to get on with my life. And if necessary, I'll delegate that. I'll be a specialist for that. But the key is to make sure that you're delegating lower priority things and you want to get so empowered and become so profitable doing what's highest on the values that you can afford people below. And that's a very important component of it. I really believe that the universe is helping us get to live an inspired life. And what it's doing is in order to master delegation, you have to actually live by your highest value, your purpose. And you have to prioritize things. And you have to be able to do what is really meaningful to you in a way that serves other people to earn the income to delegate. So the universe is forcing you to serve people, to earn the income in a productive way, to delegate if you want an inspired life. You're not going to have an inspired life unless you're doing something that serves people, that earns the income directly or indirectly, to be able to hire the people to delegate the lower priority things, to liberate yourself from those things that devalue you and get on the things that really inspire and elevate you to where you want to play in life. And I don't think there's anybody that doesn't want to play extraordinary lives. I think what's happened is they bang their head against the wall, hit ceilings because they didn't know how to do the prioritization, the clarity of values, the knowing their purpose and prioritization and delegation. And so they plateaued themselves. And then they eventually lied to themselves saying, oh, I really don't want all those things. But every time I find people that are plateaued and they say, oh, it's not really important to me, I tell them, if I showed you how to get what you want and actually make more income doing it, and they take it every time. So there's an innate drive to want to do something extraordinary with our life. And it's when we are living congruently that we get to have that. And so that's the 4th thing, is identifying and delegating things. And maybe I can go to the 5th one.
Yeah, you're welcome to. You're welcome to.
I don't know if you have something you want to pitch in, because I'm going to keep going if not.
You can keep going. Thank you, John.
Yeah. The 5th action that you want to do is learn how to sell. Now, selling is caring. And many people have really poor connotations of selling because they think of hard salespeople like car dealers and things like that try to push you to do things through motivation and they try to, guilt trip you and all kind of stuff. That's not selling. Selling is caring. Caring enough to communicate what you have to offer in terms of what will serve and fulfill the highest values. Walter Haley, who is an amazing guy that helped build Kmart, was a mentor of mine when I was around, late 20s, about almost 30 years old. And I went to his boot camp and I was lecturing at his boot camp. I met some amazing people there. And he's the one that taught me about selling. It was really quite interesting. And he said, if you have any emotions that are resistant and they're having emotions resistance, you're not selling. You're not caring. Because people It's all about caring. You care. So what it is, it's about finding out what their needs are. And there's steps to do that. You can first greet and introduce you and the person. You can then establish some sort of rapport by finding common denominators. Because if they feel that there's more similarities than differences between you and them, they open up to you. If they feel there's more differences and similarities, they close down on you. They're not resistant. And you don't have a right to communicate with them then. So you have to find and establish things by asking them questions. Because to sell is not to tell, it's to ask questions. And asking questions, again, the quality of your life is based on the questions you ask. To ask questions to show common denominators between you and them, and they open up. Then what you do is you have to establish needs. You can never sell anything to somebody until you've established a need and confirmed a need. So you want to establish needs and find out what the challenges are and what they're facing, and by asking and caring about them, find about them. I used to go to lunch with people and spend an hour at lunch. And for 45 minutes, I'd ask them questions about their life until they almost felt guilty that I didn't talk about me. And then they'd ask about me because it was a waste of time to talk about me until they were exhausted talking about them. So I basically asked them about them and found everything about them. And whoever's asking the questions is actually in command. So I learned to ask questions. And what I did is I established a need, because you can't sell something that they don't believe they have a need for. You have to establish a need, and you want to establish at least 5 needs before you ever offer a service. And then you want to confirm the needs. Don't try to sell something and you haven't got absolute certainty that they acknowledge they need that and want that. And it's their dominant need and their dominant buying motive, as Walter Haley called it. And then you can offer a service. And if you do that and it matches the need, don't try to sell something that doesn't match their need. You may get a sale and you may get a quick fix, but you're not going to build a reputation. You're not going to build a brand. You're not going to build a relationship. Make sure you do it. If you don't think that you have what they need, find somebody that does and help them. They'll come back to you when they need what you have to offer. And you do that and you care for them. They will help you build your dreams. As Zig Ziglar taught me when I was 21 years old, right before 21, he said, if you help other people get what they want, you get what you want. So you have a hierarchy of values. They have a hierarchy of values. Find out what their highest values are and help them fulfill what their highest values are by really caring about that. And they'll help you fulfill what your highest values, because you'll make the sale. And then you offer the service. Then you handle objections. And the objections are only inversely proportional to how well you established a need. And then you close. And when you close, there's not an effort if you're filling their need, because they feel you cared for them. They don't feel you cared for them if you try to shove something down that they don't want. It doesn't match their need. But they feel you cared because you're helping them get what they want, and that's what they want. They want to fulfill their highest value, just like you do. And when you do, you help them rise, you help you rise, and you get a fair exchange. Sustainable fair exchange is the key to growing wealth, and it's the greatest way to feel fulfilled in life. Everybody knows if they go and make a difference in somebody else's life, it's one of the most fulfilling things they have in life. We have a cortex. We have a sensory cortex and a motor cortex. The sensory cortex is for rewards, but the motor cortex is for service. And if we don't do service that makes a difference in people's lives and fills needs, that then turns around and helps us fulfill ours, we don't have fulfillment in life. That's why knowing our highest values and caring enough to know what other people's highest values are is crucial for that outcome. And so the 5th one is learning how to sell, learning how to care. That's the difference. Because if you're self-righteous and think what you have in your values is what they need, and you project down on them, you care less about them. And if you minimize yourself and sacrifice you in the sale, you're careful, walking on eggshells. But if you have a match and you have an equanimity between inside yourself and an equity between you and them, and they're not above or below you, but they're equal to you, you have a caring relationship. And that's what keeps rings on fingers and relationships and, in a sense, sustainable fair exchanges and transactions in business. That's the key, equanimity. And the last of the 6 actions is learning how to save and value yourself. If you have equanimity, you'll value you as much as them, and you'll begin to save. And I am amazed that there's a principle that's so powerful principle when it comes to economics. If you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, it fills up with low priority distractions that don't. But if you don't spend your money on high priority things that are valuing and going up, that are assets, it will get consumed by depreciables and consumables that break down as a symptom and a feedback to let you know you're not prioritizing your money. Because your money is a way of service. And if you're not taking your services and using it to prioritize and build wealth, then what happens? And well-being, because that's what wealth means, it automatically decays. And so you end up, if you don't prioritize your money usage, it will automatically have unexpected bills, and you'll end up using it for consumerism, and you'll end up depreciating systems instead of building wealth. And you'll end up working your whole life for money instead of having money work for you. And so the thing that changes your life is the way you manage money. And the hierarchy of your values dictates your financial destiny. And you have to have a value on whatever's meaningful to you, but you also have to have financial wealth building linked to it if you want to have the freedom to do what you love and get paid for it. And so many people have a Monday morning blues, Wednesday hump days, thank God it's Fridays, week friggin' ends, and they don't get to do what they love, and they have their vocation and vacation split, and they're working to make money over here, and then they want to get away and go on a vacation to escape it. To me, that's integrate the two. Your vocation, vacation can be the same. You can tap dance to work. The people I found that have done the most extraordinary things in the world have integrated those. When I think of Warren Buffett, he loves what he does. When I think of Tom Jones, I met Tom Jones, the singer. He loved doing singing. He did every single day. He was inspired by talking about it. He could go all night talking about it. He loved what he does. Bill Pollock owns Drake International. I sat with him. We spent all the way into the wee hours of the morning talking about his business. He loved his business. And he started in 1951. He said that was the last day he ever worked in his life. He found what he loved. And most people don't do that. They just get a job that makes money, and then they end up doing something and escaping it. I'm not against that if you want to do that, but I feel that you have this kind of a schizophrenic life instead of an inspired life. So if you want to do that, you want to save. And if you wait for savings, people keep thinking, well, when I get extra, I'll save. No, when you save, you'll get extra. Make sure you write that down and say that 1,000 times. When you save, you get extra. Because when you manage money wisely, you get more money to manage. And when you start to save and you accumulate it, you'll have an increased quality of clients. You'll have less volatility in your business. You'll have more associations, opportunities, and ideas coming to you that help you build your life. And you attract more opportunities to you. The wealthier you are, the more people want to buy you lunch instead of you buying them lunch. And then you get to save that money too. And you get to put that into it and start it working for you. So saving and then investing before you speculate is the key to growing great wealth. And learning how to save is one of the keys if you want to have an action-filled life. Because I'm absolutely certain you can do what you love and get handsomely paid for it and have it work for you instead of having to always work for it. You want both going. You want to be able to do what you love and do it not because you have to, but because you love doing it. That's the freedom that comes from that. So the 6 actions that can change your life is determine what your values are and find out what really is priority to you. Second is determine exactly what the top one is, your highest purpose in life. Because that's the one you will spontaneously be inspired from within, and you don't ever need to be motivated again. I don't want to motivate people. I don't want them to have to live by motivation. I want them to be inspired intrinsically from within. That's where they're alive. That's where they're magnetized. That's where they become leaders. Then you want to prioritize things, your actions, and make sure you live by priorities. And then you want to make sure you delegate lower priority things. And then you want to make sure you save or sell and master that, because if you don't make a difference in other people's lives, you're not going to have fulfillment, and you're not going to have the income to be able to do the life you love, and you deserve to have wealth, because wealth means well-being. That's what it is. Genuine wealth meant well-being. And we all have wealth. It's always stored in our highest values. If our children are highest, we store our wealth that way. But financial wealth is the most universal. And you want to be able to have financial wealth in addition to other forms of wealth, because that helps you have more opportunities in life. And by saving, you get to have that. So again, the 6 steps are determine your values, make sure you find the highest one, your purpose, prioritize your daily actions accordingly, delegate all lower priority actions, surround yourself with people that are greater at doing what needs to be delegated than you, so you don't have to be thinking about it again. They've done it. It's taken care of. You can be free to go on to your highest priorities. Make sure you learn how to sell whatever it is that inspires you in terms of other people's values. And remember what Walter Hiller said on that, and to make sure you save. If you do those 6 things, your life's going to change. If you master it, it's not that hard. It's doable. I was a street kid as a teenager, and I learned those things, and I've been blessed in my life because of that. And there's no reason why I can't. Doesn't matter where you've come from or what you've been through or what you're going through. What matters is that you start doing the things that change your life, and it can change it completely. Your trajectory can change. I was doing an interview one time on television, and the guy, when I came up onto the stage, he said, "Now, Dr. DeMartini, I see you have a new book out. You can change your life in just 60 days. He says, "Do you really believe that's true? That's kind of a hypey. It sounds kind of crazy. Most people don't change their life. They're just stuck in a rut. Do you really believe people can change their life?" And I paused and I stared at the guy and I looked him straight between the eyes. And I said, "Sir, it'd be impossible to convince me that you can't change your life in 60 days. My life changed in 60 minutes when I met one man one time that inspired me to do something different path. And he started teaching me these principles. And when you understand the laws of human behavior and the laws of the universe, you have an advantage in life. So you don't want to pass up these basic 6 steps. You want to put them into place starting as soon as possible. Right now, Go online and do the value determination process. Start to learn how to master plan your life and start orchestrating your life. Determine what's really valuable to you. If you look, nobody's going to get up in the morning and dedicate their life to your fulfillment. If you don't do it, nobody else is. And everybody's going to project what they feel is most important onto your life as their way of showing you love. And they're going to bombard you, and you're going to scatter yourself, and you're going to frustrate yourself if you don't take command. Any area of your life you don't empower, somebody's going to overpower you. And they're designed to frustrate you enough to get on with you what's really valuable to you. So don't look on the outside. Look for the calling from within. Anyway, those are the 6 action steps I know can change your life. And they certainly changed mine. And it's certainly changed thousands of the students I've been blessed to share it with. And the Breakthrough Experience and the programs I do, Master Planning and all the programs I do, I don't think there's any speech I do that I don't mention some of those things because they're the key elements that make things happen. So those are the 6 action steps. And I think we'll turn to maybe some questions now.
Fantastic. Thank you, John. And you mentioned the 2-day breakthrough experience. I just want to, for the people that are in the room on the webinar, we will be putting up an offer shortly to the right-hand side where you'll be able to take advantage of an exclusive offer for the people that are in the webinar and for the people that are live in the room. I'm sure we'll make that available to them. You can speak to the DeMartini team about that. But it will be popping up to the right-hand side of your screen in a second. Thank you very much, John. The 6 actions are extremely simple, extremely beautiful, but exceptionally profound. What would be the obstacles that would stop a person from taking those actions? Now, you mentioned the breakthrough experience. I know that would be a key pivot for anybody, but what would be the key obstacles that someone could encounter?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because many people compare their lives to others instead of comparing their daily action steps to their highest values and their highest priorities and purpose. That is so, when I got to work with some athletes and some really amazing, really focused people, I mean, really focused people, they tune out distractions and they are able to focus. I mean, really focus on what's important to them. So the obstacles, most common obstacles are subordination to other people that you've compared your life to that you think have something you don't. This is why the majority of people in the masses are trying to compete with the Joneses next door and distract themselves and becoming poor and trapped because they're comparing themselves to other people instead of comparing their daily actions, their highest priority actions to their dream. And I've been ridiculed. I remember when I was in professional school, I was on a commitment. I was on a mission to learn. And I really didn't want to do anything but read most of the day. I mean, I just read and read and read 18, 20 hours a day. And I literally was up at 2:30 in the morning, and I was cranking away speed reading. And then at night I was teaching, and then I slept 4 hours a day, and I was just on a roll. And because of it, I excelled. And I had the highest grades in the class. And the grades were on a curve. And when somebody gets 100, there's no curve. And so some of the students failed. And they were frustrated because they didn't want me in the class because it was screwing up all curves. And so they literally wrapped my house, my apartment at the time. They busted up my car. They slipped my tires. They busted out my windows. They didn't want me there. And so it was a bit of a challenge. And so when you go and you really go after something you're really inspired by, you will very commonly break tradition, break convention, get opposition, challenge. I always say that if you're not being crucified, you're probably not on purpose. Because if you're on purpose, you're going to be doing something innovative, creative, original, something that serves and changes things. The change makers, the real visionaries are the people that are congruent. But they're going to get opposition by mediocrity. Albert Einstein warned against that. And most all the greats know this. So you have to just endure that and know that that's temporary. Even Gandhi said that at first they ridicule, then they oppose you, then they get violent, and eventually you win. And eventually those people that challenged you come back in honor. It's interesting, in my first year, that's what happened to me. But by the time I was graduating, and because I did so well in clinical, and because I helped other doctors get through school by the volume of patients I had, some of those people turned around and became great students. And some of them 10 and 20 years later came to the programs and we gave each other a big hug. The very people that ridiculed you for excelling are the very people that eventually honor you because you did. And you got to not subordinate to the outer world. You have to let the voice and the vision on the inside become greater than all opinions on the outside. That's why I teach the Breakthrough Experience program. Breakthrough Experience program, I teach a method in there to help people not subordinate. to do the DeMartini method on the most powerful people on the planet, the greatest people in every field that you get inspired by, that you look up to, that you think, oh my God, they have something, there's no way I could do that, they're amazing, whatever. And to go in there and find out where and when you display and demonstrate those traits, actions or inactions, 100% to the same degree, quantitative and qualitatively, and wake it up in your own form and honor the form you express it in. So I say in the breakthrough experience that at the level of the soul, the essence of the soul, nothing's missing in you. But the level of your senses, things appear to be missing in you. And you think you're missing things, but in fact, you're not. But as long as you think you're missing, you're going to play a smaller game in life. But when you realize it's not missing, and you give yourself permission to shine, not shrink, and to basically go out there and do what you're really inspired to do and give yourself permission to do it and own the traits of these great people, you don't live in their shadows. You stand on their shoulders. And this is the key that Sir Isaac Newton did, and Einstein, and Richard Feynman, and any great person that did, Copernicus, and Galileo, and Bruno, and all the greats. They all walked the path. They blazed a new trail. They gave themselves permission to be an unborrowed visionary, to see their own dream and vision and not subordinate. This is the biggest obstacle people face. And I do the breakthrough experience to help people get past that. Because if they can own the traits of the greats and realize it's not missing in them, they'll give themselves permission to go back to their own highest value, their own thing. They'll stop comparing themselves and they'll start realizing they're the leader. They don't realize they have a leader inside, and if they admire other people, it's because it's inside them. That's why they feel that way. The reason they do it is because it's them they're looking at. That's so important. That's why Chomsky said that when we talk to people, we're talking to ourselves as much as talking to them, because we have what we see in them. And so getting to do that and owning those traits in the breakthrough experience can change their life. They can open up the doorway for giving themselves permission to do what they really want to do instead of sitting there and comparing. The reason people don't live by their purpose is because they think, well, somehow I'm not smart enough, because they're comparing themselves to somebody they think smarter, or somehow I'll fail at it because they're comparing themselves to somebody they think is more successful already. Or they'll sit there and they think, well, I don't have the money, or I won't make the money, or I might lose money at it, because they're comparing them to somebody that's got more wealth than them in their perception, because they keep minimizing themselves. Or they think that somehow I don't have the relationship to do it, or I may be rejected or not appreciated for doing it in a relationship, or I can't juggle that, or I might be rejected by people in society. Well, you only worry about people's rejection if you think their value and their opinions are more than yours. It's subordination to that. Or I don't have the beauty. I've seen beautiful women basically minimize themselves, thinking the other women are more pretty than them, and they rob themselves from having what they want in life. They're knocking out their beauty. So as long as we're sitting there and comparing ourselves to others and putting them up and being too humble to admit what we see in them inside us, we hold ourselves back. And so in the breakthrough experience, I've developed a system to crack that code, to dissolve that. And it takes work, but it works. And if you do that, you can set yourself free of that and stand on the shoulders of giants. That's just one of the benefits of the breakthrough experience. Another one is getting clear on what their values are, what your values are. If you don't get clear on what it is and don't really get confined, you'll keep setting goals that aren't yours. And then you end up beating yourself up. And anytime you set a goal that's not congruent, you're designed to beat yourself up. That's a feedback to let you know you're being inauthentic. And that's why Emerson said, envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide. We're not here to imitate people. We're not here to envy people. We're here to inspire people's lives by living authentically. And we automatically magnetize opportunity the moment we begin to do that. So in Breakthrough, we identify the values. We teach the principles of human behavior. And there's a whole lot of myths out there. There's a whole lot of self-help stuff out there that actually misleads people. It's hedonistic. It's trying to get immediate gratification. And it's what sells to people's dopamine fix instead of what actually helps them become a master of their life. I'm interested in things that will stand the test of time. I'm not interested in a quick fix. I'm not interested in rah-rah. I'm interested in helping people find their own mastery and get on with it. That's what inspires people. I also help people show them how to manifest what they want in life, because if they set goals that are congruent and they start to, their executive center comes online. They automatically see it. They automatically think about it. They automatically visualize it and talk about it. They automatically act on it. It's just spontaneous. When you get inspired by something, you spontaneously move towards what you want. And it spontaneously synchronizes because your mind is alert to see the opportunities and you take action on them. So I could go on and on about breakthrough. I've been doing it for 28 friggin' years now. I've been doing it, I've done it 1,096 or 7 times now. And it's one thing that I love doing, because I love watching people's lives transform. And I don't think there's anything greater in life than watching that and getting that, because I think we all want to make a difference. I ask people all over the world, how many want to make a difference? And everybody puts their hand up. I've been in prison in South Africa, in Krugersdorp prison, with 1,000 inmates in the maximum security prison, the most dangerous characters on the planet are there. And I asked them that question, and every hand went up instantaneously that they want to make a difference. So it's innate inside us to do it. But we can't make a difference when we're trying to be other people. We dilute our power to make a difference. We make a difference when we're our uniqueness and to capturing our uniqueness. In my master plan program, I help people find their uniqueness, because finding that out and allowing yourself to use that uniqueness to make the difference allows us the fulfillment of that fulfillment, making the difference that we want to make. So I could go on and on about the breakthrough experience. You probably guessed. Start to warm up.
Thank you, John. And that's amazing. Your heartfelt service to people is really inspiring, and it makes what I'm about to do now even more important and humbling to me, to be able to offer this breakthrough experience to our audience, knowing how much it can transform and shift their lives, and being able to take this action and being able to hear the passion that you deliver it with. I'd just like to make it clear to the audience that if they take up the offer now, on the right-hand side, you'll see it's over there. It's going to be available for the next hour and 50 minutes. And the DeMartini Institute will be online to answer any of your questions and help you through that process. All you have to do is click on the Book Now link, and you'll drive through to the sales page. But what you're going to be doing is you're going to be spending 24 hours in person with Dr. DeMartini. So the passion, you always say, Dr. DeMartini, about putting your hand in the honey jar, that some of that honey is going to stick. This is your opportunity for the audience to get that honey all over your hands and to have that stick. To be able to be, it sounds a bit strange, but
look, that's not easy to be with me for 24 hours too. I want to admit that, but I can tell you right now that I'm going to do everything I can in that 24 hours to kick your butt, because if you're in your way, we're going to get you past it.
And that's it. These actions are simple, but the follow through on them is so important. So I need the audience now to take that action and follow through by clicking on the link, going through to the sales page. You'll see there's an event. We've got one in the United States, Australia, Canada, United Kingdom, and South Africa. This is a limited time offer, like I mentioned before, but it does include an additional 10% saving and complimentary bonus worth $400, which is the Inspired Destiny online course. Now, the Inspired Destiny online course on its own is extremely profound and something well worth your investing into. It's 4 hours and 8 minutes, 14 sessions that come as a bonus with the breakthrough experience if you sign up through this webinar program. Again, you're going to be spending 24 hours with John learning on how to empower your life and inspire all areas of your life, clarify your vision, increase your focus, achieve your goals. These are just some of the key bullet points, and we can go on and on and on about these, John, I'm sure, what people are going to take away. But I think the key is they're going to get that breakthrough. They're going to actually sit in the room and get that breakthrough in the room. It's not something that they're going to do afterwards, correct?
You know, I have to say something. I was in London about a week and 2 days ago, and Saturday night at the breakthrough, you know, we go till pretty late. I don't stop until we get breakthrough. We make sure that everybody gets the breakthrough. And there's a gentleman there that had not talked to his father for 25 years. No communication. And he was bitter. And I always told him that anything that you can't love and anything you can't appreciate is going to run your life until you do. And it's going to be baggage instead of fuel. And we need to get that off your back, because it's going to be making you make decisions. And he was trying to be the opposite of his father and ended up being his father, because whatever you try to run away from, you keep running into. So he broke through that night. And it was not an easy adventure. We had to push him a bit and had to help him do it by the questions in the DeMartini method. But he broke through it. And about 11:30 at night, he's sitting there with tears of gratitude for his father. He never thought that was possible. And his father communicated with him after 25 years on email. Right then. All of a sudden, he got email from his father. And that was pretty mind-blowing to him. He was just like, couldn't believe his father communicated with him and opened up a dialogue with him. And this is the kind of stuff I see. I've seen people that have health issues transform health issues, literally. I've seen people that have relationship issues all of a sudden dissolve. We had a couple this week that were basically kind of at ends meet, and they were holding hands on Sunday. They were back in the game. So there's just so many benefits that come out of that. From business benefits, I've seen people that hit a plateau. I had a guy that was resenting, he was resenting himself because he'd been 3 years and he couldn't get past his plateau in his business. And he had an internal conflict because he was subordinating to his father. His father was a really great man. He looked up to his father. But his father had a high value on social connections and family, but he didn't have a high value on wealth building. And he had this limit on what is wealth. And anything that went beyond that, he thought that people were not wise, not ethical. So he had in this brain an admiration for his father, but he didn't realize he was injecting the values of his father into his mind. So anytime he hit that level that his father said anything beyond that is bad, he stopped, he plateaued, and he couldn't get past it. So I had him do the Demartini method that I do in the Breakthrough on his father, cleared the infatuation and that, helped him understand that he was living his values, and he has a different set of values, and he went to $200,000, from $40,000 to $200,000 the next month. That's the kind of stuff that happens. A breakthrough happened because he was not even realizing unconsciously that was sitting there inside his unconscious running him get his game, having an internal conflict between if I want to be successful, but I don't want to be. I want to be successful, I don't want to be. These are kind of things that people don't even know they have, and the breakthrough can unveil and clear. So there's tremendous, I could go on and on with the transformations I've seen, but it's really, I don't know, I love doing it. That's all I can say.
That's incredible. And the fact that you love it is a testament, after doing so many of them, how powerful it is to be able to see that transformation personally in people in front of you. And again, for the people that are in the room, the offer is available. You just need to go to the right-hand side and click on the offer, go to the landing page. Some of the previous attendees have said that the breakthrough experience has been a gift to my life, the changes and opportunities I've created in my life due to the understanding it has given me and the impact in almost every area of my life. I can truly say for the first time in my life that I love what I do and what I love to do. That's from Richard Bevan. And we've got another testimony here of Dr. Demartini. There are so many moments in my life where I'm so grateful to have this tool. In the past, I would have sat for weeks dwelling in anger or frustration. But now I have the powerful tool that helps me to shift my perceptions in moments. I am so much more adaptable to life's twists and turns, and a result, a lot less stressed than I was in the past. And that's from Chris Dunn. And that comes back to, again, being able to control your emotions, overcome your challenges, reduce your stress, and manage your emotions, which I think in the times that we live in, we can all deal with. So if you're ready to take action, you've listen to Dr. Demartini and these 6 power steps, I would advise you to click on the link. We've got amazing specials, 10% discount on the early bird special, plus an additional complimentary bonus worth $400 if you click on the link now. The Demartini team is available on the line to take any queries and questions. Demartini, is there anything in closing that you would like to add to the audience?
Yeah, something that I say at the close of some of my seminars that I want to say that something I got to share at a school not too long ago with about 800 young teenagers who were in South Africa in a township. And I said it to them, and I say it to anyone, any walk of life. You want to give yourself permission to do something extraordinary on planet Earth. Because the real you is extraordinary. And to the degree that you subordinate to everybody else, you'll be ordinary. You want to be yourself. There's no greater you than you. And no fantasy you'll ever impose on yourself will be greater than the magnificence of who you are. So give yourself permission to do something extraordinary, magnificent on planet Earth. All you know is that if you do, you will have a fulfilling life. You'll make a difference. You won't have the regrets at the end of your life. And you'll give permission for other people to do the same, and you'll create a chain reaction that makes a difference. So that's it. Just give yourself permission to do it.
Thank you, John, and I'll take that one personally to heart. And thank you to our live audience and the Demartini team and everyone that has made this event possible. It's an amazing dynamic to have this come together, that technology can provide us this intimacy with such a profound message that people really need to take action on. It's as simple as clicking the book button, going through and having faith in your personal journey and believing in yourself and your authenticity. By being able to move into that space, and I can speak from my own personal testimony, the more and more I do that, and I'm by no means all the way there, but with Dr. Demartini's help and the support of the Demartini Institute, I've been able to grow year on year through this process. And I would advise everybody to go and take a look, to go onto the website, to do your values, and to make sure that you take action on these things. It's an incredible team, an incredible opportunity, and one that you would really, really need to take advantage of today. So I'd just like to thank you, John. We're about to close off the webinar. Thank you very much for your time. That's Brandon Tankott.
Whoever's out there, thank you for tuning in. I hope that somehow what my message somehow touched you. My life changed, like I say, in 60 minutes I hope that happened for you today.
Thank you, John. Great. I almost forgot they were in the room. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.